Great, thank you. I'll call to order the Thursday, September 15th, 2022 meeting of the Town North Andover Community Preservation Committee. I'll begin with our preamble. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting will be conducted via in-person and via remote means. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandoverma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so on their televisions by tuning to Comcast Channel 8, Verizon Channel 26, or online at www.northandovercam.org. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we'll post on the town website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. If the public would like to participate in the public meeting, please email your questions or comments prior to or during the meeting to cpcemails@northandoverma.gov. The question or comment will be provided to the committee before the meeting or read during the proceedings if received during or shortly before the meeting. Thank you all for attending. I think we actually have, with everyone counted for, a full house. Appreciate everyone being here for this. Want to, I guess, kick things off. Welcome everybody back. Hope everyone had a great summer. And kick things off, we got, I think, a fairly light agenda on a couple of things we can go through. But I think we'll start with, as we talked about in our June meeting, for how we want to continue to manage the committee overall. We'll talk about bylaws, but I think we'll start with a vote on committee leadership. The way we'd go ahead and go about this is we'll accept nominations for anyone who wants to nominate someone for chair. You can nominate yourself. It does not need to be seconded. We'll have a vote, and then we'll move on to vice chair with the same process. So with that, I'll open the floor to any nominations.
I would nominate you, Brian, as chair.
Thank you, Tracy. If elected, I will serve.
Or a second over there.
Yeah, second, yep. Any other nominations for chair? Okay, we'll move to a vote. And we will, since we are hybrid, we'll do a roll call vote. Bill Callahan?
Yes.
Tracy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
All right, it is unanimous. Thank you all very much. Appreciate the confidence. Thank you. Now open up to nominations for vice chair.
I'll make a motion.
I would nominate Bill Callahan as vice chair.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay,
Second.
second by Tim. Any other nominations? Okay, we'll go to roll call vote. Bill? Oh, Bill probably wouldn't vote.
Yes.
Yeah. Tracy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you all very much. That is, get that out of the way. Next item on our agenda is to adopt bylaws. So we talked about this, I think, a little bit at length in June. And the way we left things is that we would, I think Bill volunteered to take a stab at putting together some draft bylaws, which you have in your meeting packet now. A group of us met in August and realized at the very end of the meeting that it was not a quorum, so we didn't take any vote on anything. Plus, there wasn't enough folks anyway that anyone would have felt comfortable voting on bylaws. So with that, what I would like to do is go through, I took our comments for that meeting as well as circulated with the town manager and town council just to make sure we're right with them. So what is in the meeting packet right now is the original draft with red line form based on our comments as well as comments that were received from town council. So so I did, even things that town council struck, I left in just so everyone could know where we started and what was discussed. So I'd like to go ahead and review these, not line by line necessarily, but maybe hit on some of the hot button items, or for any of the folks who were unable to attend the August meeting, if you have any questions, if you had a chance to review them, that you'd like to address now, happy to talk about them, or we can go through any specific items. So with that, I'll open the floor to anyone who has any commentary. No?
I got a real simple question.
Sure.
I apologize to my fellow members. I'm being stupid. I probably could research and figure it out, but who are all the at-large members, and
Sure.
the other members? Who do they represent?
Sure.
Because it wasn't well, no one's ever spelled it out for me, but I can guess, but
You're at large.
I
Yes.
figured that, yeah.
Yeah, the at-large members of the committee right now are yourself, me, Bill, and Rick, I believe, right?
Yes.
And then for the other members that represent various constituencies, Jack is with Concom. We currently have a vacancy from Historic. John is from Planning Board. Terry is Youth and Rec Council, and Tracy is from Housing.
Okay.
Okay. And I guess that probably addresses, we can go through and may touch on a couple of these things. I think you're probably referring to under general number 4.
Right.
One of the provisions we talked about that the committee chair would only come from those 4 at-large members, which I recognize could be controversial, right? Because that's a minority of the members on the committee overall. And I think part of the discussion that went into the thought behind that was independence, right? Everyone who is appointed by a committee comes with that. You're there to advocate for the best interests of that committee, whether it's housing or rec or anything else. So the thought being, should the chair be independent of that? And I'm open to discussion. I'm certainly not married to that in one way or the other if we feel that it excludes too many people from serving leadership.
What was town council's opinion on that? And
Town council didn't have necessarily a strong opinion on that was against the rules. I don't think they were necessarily in favor of it in that sense, because I think he misread the document in terms of how an at-large member was defined, but I think it is pretty clear. It's not at-large may not be defined in the bylaw, but it's defined in these bylaws, and it's how the committee is comprised. So, but
yeah.
this is one I'm not going to fight too hard for one way or the other, but
I gave some thought on it after we left the meeting, and I just thought if everybody's coming here every month and they're all participating, I would just have everybody participate in the vote personally for the chair.
well, no, it's clear. Everyone will be able to vote, but there's only who will be eligible to serve as chair.
Oh.
Everyone will be able to vote. Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, I didn't even think you got to vote originally.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. We wouldn't restrict anyone's voting. I mean, a lot of this, and a lot of what town council struck was, for instance, we had talked about provision of term limits. Right? We can't enforce term limits because
That's
we
ridiculous.
can't control what comes from any other committee, or frankly, from the select board. The select board
Right.
chooses to continue to reappoint people. So that's struck from here in its entirety, so.
Yeah.
Well.
Couple of things, and I want to be careful what I say.
John, I'm sorry. Could you speak a little closer to the mic? I apologize. Bill and I are remote, and it's just really hard to hear you guys. I'm sorry.
I think there's certain problematic issues related to limiting a board that way. First of all, under the town bylaw, there's actually 6 ex officio members and only 3 at-large members. And that is an existing problem that we have already. If you look at it, one of the slots is supposed to go to the Open Space Committee.
Oh.
And there's not supposed to be 4. So if indeed we fix that, then you're talking about picking your chair and your vice chair among 3 people. So that's one practical thing. The other problem is, the bigger problem is, I have never, in all my experience in town politics, ever seen anything at all like this, where you participate extensively in a board, but you have no ability to be the chair. I mean, maybe it's legal, but it's certainly not common practice here or any other place that I've talked to people about. So I don't think it's a good idea because it's much too limited, and I think you're going to have trouble getting people to join and participate in something where you say you can't ever be the chair. For those reasons, I just don't think it's a good idea.
I would agree with that.
I concur.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would agree with that. I think it's kind of awkward saying, none of you guys can.
No.
Yeah.
And again, this is not a hill that I would ever die on. It's, it was, and it's not necessarily directed at this committee, right? We're writing these bylaws for future committees. Actually, I wasn't aware of that open space provision, which maybe is something else we ought to address altogether, but I wasn't aware of that, so.
I applaud the intent,
Yeah.
but I don't think you should be limiting it.
It seems like a consensus there, so that's very easily struck. That's not an issue at all. Number 9 under general, which again, for benefit of those who weren't here in August, we talk about the specific CPC town meeting warrant article. Initially, it was written as the entire warrant article would be voted on by the CPC. Town council misconstrued that as if we were going to be voting on and approving all 20-plus warrant articles, which is not the case. The provision for this is what we talked about a lot in June, of whatever we present to town to be a part of that warrant article, we're going to decide right there in that meeting. We'll have it up there on the screen. We'll type through it and make sure that everyone's comfortable and vote on it at that time. I think that's the intent of number 9 within here.
Well, the only, one point that I would raise is that you may have, your regular omnibus article, if you will, that includes all of it. But in some cases, you may need to add an additional article. For example, if we ever purchase land and choose to potentially consider bonding it or some sort of borrowing, you'd have to have a separate article for
Right.
that. So you don't want to bind yourself too much.
John, could you speak into the microphone, because
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah,
hear.
sorry.
it.
It also helps Bernadette too when she's doing our minutes.
Yeah,
so thank you.
as I was saying, that we normally have an omnibus article that lists all the line items, the amounts, the category, and so forth. But there are occasions where we might need another article, most significantly in the case of if you're purchasing something that it requires a bond or some sort of borrowing, you would need another article. And there may even be another circumstance where town council looks at something and says, based on their interpretation of the law, you should have a separate article for this. Jess, you don't want to create your regulations so narrowly that it precludes some flexibility there. That's my only point. And again, I haven't even read the whole thing because I didn't even see it until tonight, so.
Sorry about that, yeah. Well, I guess what I would say is maybe if we reword this from the warrant article to the report of the CPC, which would be, that's really what we're talking about
Yeah.
here. It's to the report of the CPC to be, participating in the town meeting warrant article. If everyone's okay with that, we can make that change, because I think those are fair points to bring up, that, we have to go back and it just becomes unworkable if you're voting on multiple language from other folks, so. Okay. Were there any other comments or questions that anyone else had? There's a handful of things that are in here just regarding rules of speaking on behalf of the committee and identifying yourself as a member of the committee, which I did bounce off the town moderator, and he was comfortable with that language, since it kind of steps into his purview a little bit. And everything else is really regarding open meeting law and conflict of interest law and those sorts of things, which are all pretty much standard and covered by the regular conflict of interest laws that we're already bound to, so.
I
Yep.
did have a question on the conflict of interest.
Sure.
And I'm not sure, I know there's some things, crossed out under D, conflicts of interest. If a member has a question about whether or not their participation would be a conflict of interest, they shall. So is that only just if you're questioning whether or not you can participate or not? I mean, because we take we take the annual conflict of interest class and what have you, and most of us understand and know when we have to recuse ourselves. So that's just if we're questioning it, not.
Correct.
I have to do it every time. Okay.
No, it's really, it provides, what that provides for is it provides them the process and the mechanism to clear that question up if they're unsure.
Just if there's a question of it.
Yeah. And again, just not to rehash, but just so everyone could see kind of what was struck from this section is one of the things we talked about is if one of the members from, say, Concom or from Trace Community from Housing, and Housing
Yeah.
comes before us with an application, as they do often, should that member, be allowed to vote or recuse themselves
No,
from voting?
if I have no financial,
Yeah, and again, and I think it's worked fine for here. It's, I don't want this to be a solution in search for a problem. So, but it was just, is something
right,
to
I mean,
talk about.
most of
And that's
us
why it struck,
know
yeah.
what a conflict of interest is.
Yeah.
And we're actually, I mean, the way that this community preservation is set up to have specific, representatives of specific
Constituencies.
we're there to represent our constituents under our specific boards and committees.
Right.
So we only if there's a financial gain or something along those lines, or a family financial gain. All right, I just wanted
Yeah.
clarification on that. The only other question, I'm sorry, I mean to
No, go
I
ahead.
mean to bump backwards, but membership. A quorum shall be a majority of the members of the committee. A quorum is required for any meetings or actions of the committee. If we don't have a quorum, you can't have a meeting. So that's the way it's always been, but we've had meetings without quorum.
Have we?
August?
Sorry,
we just
have we intentionally had a meeting without a quorum?
Yeah, you wouldn't have a meeting,
Yeah.
you'd cancel it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the August meeting should have been canceled.
When we started, we thought we did.
I guess we had a question over what was a quorum if we're down a member.
Well,
So,
Right,
a
'cause
quorum would be, that makes sense, I
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah, at the time, we're,
Any other board or committee I've ever served on, and those that I worked for, if I don't have a quorum, I can't have a meeting. You can't have discussions. You just can't have a meeting.
correct. And we mistakenly thought we had a quorum and got that cleared up because we understood it to be that when we only have 8 members, that 4 was a quorum. And town council cleared that up for us after the fact.
Okay.
So, but,
okay.
and again, regardless, we agreed, we're not going to take any votes during that meeting. No one felt comfortable taking any votes during that meeting.
No, I
Yeah,
know, but
yeah. But yeah, maybe it was, I don't know,
it was still a pretty big discussion. Do you know what I mean? Like,
True.
I just want to make sure that that we're just following what we should be. That's all I'm saying.
true. Again, I know an August meeting is a little bit out of the ordinary, but we did meet in June and discuss and agree to have an August meeting specifically for that
No,
point.
no, no,
So,
no. I
yeah.
understand that, Brian. I understand that. But if you didn't pull off a quorum, should there have been a meeting?
I would agree. But there should not have been a meeting without a quorum. Again, we thought we had a quorum.
Okay.
So that was,
That makes sense to me. It's clear
Yeah,
now. Thank
yeah.
you. Thank
yeah.
you.
and then, Brian, I'm sorry, I just wanted to ask on the conflict of interest question again. I think we're really clear, like the housing authority is coming forward with a proposal, and that we have a representative of the housing authority. That member does not have to, say I have a conflict and not participate.
Right.
Correct.
But is it any different on another nonprofit board? Or are they the same? Should they be, my question is, should they be raised? I think there's a couple things you can do when you have a level of conflict of interest. One is to disclose, I am on the board of this organization.
That's a,
The other is to recuse. I think they're two, slightly different things. And I'd be interested to hear any of the background that town council gave, even though I'm fine with striking the whole concept entirely and just saying we'll follow the mass conflict of interest law.
Yeah, the direction from town council was you're covered under mass conflict of interest and don't stray too far from that. That was the direction from town council.
this committee itself is created under the bylaw with certain representation.
Right.
I will never recuse for a housing authority. I'm always going to vote yes, more than likely, as I would assume any other representative from the Historical Society or what have you. We don't have any financial interest in it. Now, if I was married to an architect who was working with the North Andover Housing Authority and, my husband was going to make money off it, that's a whole different ballgame. Then, of course, I recuse.
And that's
But,
covered by the
this
state law.
committee itself is specifically created to have representation from what our mission is.
Yep. Again, I would agree. I think town council would concur with that, is, you're covered from any potential issues by the state law. And if someone doesn't behave the way they ought to under the state law, there's other provisions and remedies, for that, so.
Okay.
And then in that, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but the composition of CPC coming from many other constituencies does make it somewhat unique within the town, in that sense. So we are a little bit different, which I think is what
Sorry.
driving.
Say that one more time.
I said the fact that CPC is comprised by the bylaw of members specifically from other committees makes it somewhat unique in town, unless I'm mistaken. Unless there's another board or committee that is comprised in the same manner that we are.
That's what she said too.
No, but community preservation was created specifically to have.
Correct. No, I understand. I'm just saying that we're unique within the town in that sense. That's what I'm saying. That's why I think you wouldn't necessarily see any of these things in other bylaws of the finance committee or elsewhere. So that's all. I think Tracy, we're saying the same thing.
Yeah, we are, totally. We totally are.
Okay.
That was 2 minutes killed.
Yeah. Yeah, so again, to the quorum point, and that's addressed under 3B, where it is made clear that regardless of vacancy, a quorum for this committee is 5. So even if we have a vacant spot and we're down to 8 members or 7, the quorum is still 5. It's based on the number of bylaw seats, so.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? John, would you like more time to review? Yeah. Yeah.
Because I didn't get that.
Okay, all right. Well, I apologize to the committee for people getting this late. So if we'd like, we can table this and vote at our next meeting. I don't think there's any requirement to do so. So
That's fine.
if everyone's okay with that.
Sounds good.
Yeah, okay, great. But again, I think we hit on all the hot button items in this discussion right now. But by all means, take time. Everybody can be more comfortable when we come back in for it the next time. Okay. Moving right along. Just a quick update on some old business. Cp3 reporting. For those who, it may just be John and I who are aware of this, but this is kind of behind the scenes of every approved project gets submitted to the state data bank. There's a process that takes place, I think, sometime over the summer. This is the first year I've had to do it. I don't know if planning or the staff did it before or Dan did it.
Staff did it for, I think, a couple of years.
Okay.
Prior to that, I did.
You did, okay. Once I got the password figured, it wasn't all that difficult, but I did check today, a little bit, a little awkward. But it did look like last year's fiscal year projects were not in, so I don't know whether Dan
Surprised
did
because they threatened to withhold your money.
Well, right. So I logged in the data bank today, and I didn't see, the fiscal year '23 ones up there, which made sense to me because I think today was the deadline for them, so maybe they haven't uploaded it yet. But I didn't see any of last year's either, so I'm going to follow up with them and see where they're at. But just so everyone's aware, the communitypreservation.org website, you can go back and see every project that's been approved through CPA right back to the very beginning. It's really just, it's not a whole lot of details. I think it's the amount, the name, and which category it falls under. But if anyone is looking at that for any research or any of the projects we're doing.
I think the Community Preservation Coalition does a nice job sifting through that and kind of organizing it, because I think what they do is they look at all the stuff and they say, these are interesting ones, and then they might even call the town and get it highlighted and put it on the website.
Right, right, yeah. So, but that was that, just so people are aware that that's something that took place in the past month. Grant agreements, I did execute the grant agreements that came through over the summer. Everyone should have been copied on that or seen it through the CPC emails. They are in the meeting packet for people to see if you have any questions. No action we need to take on any of them. Everything is off and running, and I've been getting quarterly reports sent in sporadically from a handful of groups, so I'll put those in a folder as well, so we can have them to review for our next meeting if necessary, as well as the financials. Did anyone have any questions or comments on the financials?
Is there anybody we haven't heard from that we should be hearing
From
from?
on a quarterly report basis?
Yeah.
I gotta go back and look at the list. Dan had gone through, and there were a couple we probably still had some questions on, and maybe we can do that at our October meeting, is go through some of the ones that may have sat with no activity for a little while. and just see kind of what's been happening with those, if there's, our typical annual closeout, meeting of where everything stands, so. So if no one has any other questions on the financials, let's go to the meeting schedule. And this, I think, also gets back to largely our discussion from June of really our process, right, of how we want to go about laying out the year. And just from I kind of took, obviously, town meeting and really our presentation to the select board, which they've chosen as March 13th, which I think is even earlier than it was this past year, and kind of work backwards, right, to get us to a point where I think we're ready to present. And one of the things that we talked about in the spring doing was having almost a stage 1 and a stage 2 application process where, and I think this would be encouraged for first-time applicants specifically, to at least get a notice of intent that, hey, we're going to be applying, not moving up the hard application deadline, but at least giving them an opportunity to come in, start to get their ducks in a row, and then give them a couple of months for the final application to really work it. I keep thinking of someone like, Mr. Kelly, and the work, all the back and forth that he had to go through once he got applied to us. I think for that kind of application, I think having this two-stage process could be really, really beneficial. So if everyone wants to take a quick look at this schedule, our public project meeting, the big one that we had all the attendees last year, was that December or was that November? Can anyone recall? I should have looked it up beforehand. I thought it was November.
I think it was November.
It was in November,
I
right?
think it was November.
Okay, all right. So that would stay consistent. And the way I'd set this up was that by December 1st, anyone filing an application would be strongly encouraged to get a notice of intent application in. They're probably call it a short form application. Really broad scopes, what are you looking to do? Not even require dollar amounts necessarily, but just what are you looking to do and what are you looking to talk about? And we'd have those folks in for our December 9th meeting to kind of talk with them a little bit about their applications, let them give an early presentation as a follow-up to the meeting, and then take the next 2 months and allow them to refine those processes. Historic, Ridgewood, any of those folks who have been for us a million times don't need to go through that process, right? They know what they're up against. And then we'd have our application deadline on February 3rd for our February meeting on the 9th. And they'd be trying to approve projects by March 9th so that we can have our report submitted to Select Board on March 13th. A really, really tight time frame, as everyone knows. And that assumes that we can get through our project review on the 9th and likely have to have a supplemental meeting between February 9th and March 9th to get it all done. No different than we've done the last several years, but I just want to make sure everyone's at least somewhat comfortable with that. I don't know when Finance wants us to come before them, but I have heard from Select Board as March 13th.
I feel like this is kind of a trend, like moving things up. I work with Newburyport Community Preservation, and I actually got an email at the end of August that if we were interested, that I had to have all of my stuff in by the December meeting. So
Really?
I feel like this kind of a trend of pushing things a little bit further that gives the committee a little bit more time to actually review and understand what we're putting forth. West Newbury as well also has pushed up their times.
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable. I mean, I think this is more than fair. You know, I mean, it's a good calendar. I don't know if fair is the right word, but you know what I mean.
Right, I think we're bringing them into a process and educating them along the way so that they can, submit a complete application. So it's not like they show up in February with an application and we say like, there are all the gaps, then they're scrambling and they don't have enough time.
Right. That's
done.
what I'm finding
So I think
in my
this
own,
helps them.
in my regular day to day.
Right.
I think a lot of applications come forward that aren't totally put together, and like you said, Bill, where people are scrambling. So I think this is great. I think it gives people. I like the calendar. I think it's great.
Good. And I would encourage us from this meeting right up to that public project meeting is when we take our time to spread the word, right? And to not only talk to our various groups, but everyone else that you may or may not know. And I'll talk with the town about social media posting and whatnot, just to continue to spread the word. Are there any committees outside of, the ones that you all may report back to or be aware of that we should be sitting with in the fall prior to that November meeting to try and elicit proposals? Anyone could think of that we should be talking to? I mean, obviously
No,
people.
I think those that come forward regularly
They know us,
know
right?
to. You know what I mean? They know.
Yeah,
I think Terry and I probably have a handle on the Fields Committee.
I would think so, yeah.
For rec.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, and again, folks like Phonat know how to find us. They know the process, so.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, with that, does anyone see any other challenges with the schedule? I'll try and get a date from finance, and then we'll decide in February if we need a supplemental meeting to review, hopefully, the multiple applications we'll be getting in, so. Okay. So this is the meeting schedule. I recognize that communication maybe hasn't been great the last couple of months in terms of making sure everyone's got the meetings invites, and we'll want to go ahead and clear all that up to make sure that everyone's got it and everyone's getting the emails. Because so make sure that everyone's getting the emails and getting what they need, so that we have good attendance. So, but in general, let's count on this schedule, and I think everyone knows how to reach me if they're unsure. So is anyone not getting the emails at all? Are you not getting the invites?
No,
From Bernadette?
no.
No, John, you got the agenda and everything, but you didn't get the invite, or no?
I have to go back and check, I saw the agenda.
Okay.
I don't think I got it last month, but I got this, so at least
Okay.
I know prospectively I should be okay.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so I'll double check with Bernadette and make sure everything's, so I usually check with her by Wednesday or so and say, hey, who hasn't responded to the invite? And again, that's where it seemed like you thought you had, or she thought you had, but that's all right. We'll get that cleaned up, and then we'll go from there.
Like I said, I keep trying to respond to that, but it won't let me. I don't know why. But that was in the past, but I
That's
haven't,
that
now I
flip
didn't
phone
get it.
usually.
Next time it happens, I'll help you out. I'll walk you
To
through
you
it.
when you told me I needed another email, I needed a government email or something, address.
All right. Next, the last thing on the agenda is approving the minutes from the June 9th meeting of 2022. The only ones who were unable to vote on this are Jack and Tracy.
Motion to approve the minutes as drafted.
No one to abstain.
Second.
Second? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, call it unanimous.
Abstain.
Thank you. All right, can I get a final motion?
Motion to adjourn.
I'm okay on the minutes, sorry.
right.
Can't really hear it.
All right, sorry, Bill. Yep. We have a motion to adjourn. I believe it has been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
right, we are adjourned.
Aye.
Thank you.
Gavel.
Yeah. Thank you for your time, folks.
Have a great night,
See you next
everybody.
month. All right.
Yeah.
Take care.
See you October 20th.
Yeah, you gotta try to
See you next month.
All right.